All right. So a very warm welcome to our first online conversation on the Sustainability Toolkit from the Coffee Roasters Guild. I'm very happy to have you all here today. So we have Joanna, Sarah, Philip, and Kimelina on the online conversation panel, and we'll discuss together the Sustainability Toolkit and some data we received from the first people that already filled in the toolkit. However, to start, we'll talk really briefly, or Joanna actually will take you into the short introduction into what is this toolkit, what's it about. Then we'll have a short look into the part one, the environmental part. Then we have some of the most interesting answers that appeared really interesting to us, share some resources, and call on the audience to get involved, right? So I'm happy to hand over to Joanna to take us along the journey of what is this toolkit, why we're doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, everyone. It's good to be here and present the CRG Sustainability Toolkit. You already have one presentation of this from Babel that you can find on CRG's website, where you can, go more into depth. But here we have it just on a brief cap up where we are. So we have Coffee Roasters Sustainability Toolkit that we saw a need of in CRG, where sustainability often were received as tricky to measure or fluffy, hard to grasp, misused, etc. That flamed the conversation about what if we actually try to concretize and make a toolkit that's measurable and based on facts and for roasters, and very much like a checklist on things you can do and where you can get feedback. And this is something we've been working hard on over a couple of years now. And it's built on the SCA sustainability education, which is like in the same lines as the Brundtland definition, etc. So it's very much building on the three pillars in sustainability. However, on this one, we have 4 different pillars that will be relieved, where you as a coffee roaster go in and you fill in your data on, we have environmental, that's the first one. We have labor and human rights in the second, that's going to be released end of June or early July. We have social, and we have transparency that we're focusing on. And this is everything that's being used within the roastery. So we're looking at what's happening from when the green coffee is arriving at yours and how it's going out. Do you remember?
Yes.
Slide. So for the very first one, we are looking at environmental, and that's the part we're going to dig deeper into today. It takes 7 minutes. You can click further again, Richard. We have 26 questions in total, and so far more than 85 people have filled this in. So it's very interesting to start seeing the data coming in. I just want to remind everyone that this is a live tool, so it's not a fixed survey per se. Like, it's going to be, the questions are going to be updated based on answers. We can go into, different sources, and hopefully in the long line we will have like a base on sources where you, as a coffee roasters, can see how to do better within the specific area where you would like to improve.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joanna. Yes, that's the toolkit. And as you mentioned, we already had over 85 people that filled in the data, and this is what we're using as a basis to discuss some interesting finds or some interesting data among our group today, right? Which is, again, just to mention, it's 85 people, so it's not going to be statistical over, valid, or it's not going to let us dive into like these overall conclusions, but I think it's giving us a good basis to talk about and have a conversation amongst the environmental part within the roastery, right? So the first insight that we had from our toolkit, and I think, Joanna, you picked this one. Why did you think this was interesting, and why did you pick this question?
No, but this stood out to me that we have 81 people that answered this question, and it was 22%, like 18 roasters filled in that they're already calculating CO2 in their companies. And I mean, that's the awareness of the climate crisis are fairly new, like it's extremely urgent. And we had heard Antonio Guterres just this week, and it's very complex, and it impacts us a lot along the whole supply chain in the coffee industry. And yet it's so new, it's so many people that already is reacting to this. And I just find that very specialty coffee community, like that we are on our toes, we want to do good, we start to do the work, and we start to see, like, looking into what can we do. Of course, it's very different, like it's a broad question. This is just asking if it's calculating CO2 in general. So to go fully CO2 neutral, you would need a greenhouse gas protocol that we can share sources on how to do at the end. But otherwise, just Google that, and it will give you like a broad idea in everything you can look at on your CO2 impact in your company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's big and it's broad, but also I think it's easy to start to not do it as comprehensive and deep, but actually just look at the, catch the low-hanging fruit, and kind of look at, you look at your traveling, you look at your, your miles, you look at, like things that are more easy to calculate, and that you already have a kind of like a setup for how to compensate, and where you can cut, you start to cut those. And I find this really inspiring that already 18 roasters who filled in this survey are measuring CO2.
Yeah, super interesting. Thank you, Joanna. And I think, Kim-Alena, you picked the same question as like a starting point, like as an interesting data set where you thought it was interesting to look at too. Why was that?
Yeah, I was interested in this number, and Joanna, I love how the inspiration that you find in this, because for those that don't know me, I work with the SCA as staff, and so I'm not part of the Coffee Roasters Guild, and it's been some years now since I've worked in the context of a roastery. But if I could think back to that point, while obviously we still have a long way to go, even if this was a statistically significant or a representative sample of all of the roasters worldwide, the fact that there are even 18 companies that are doing this at all, I feel like I can remember a time when there wouldn't have been 18 companies in the entire global coffee industry that would have been calculating the CO2 impact of their company. So I think that I love that reflection. I think that is a good way to see it, as getting this start. And I also picked this one because I thought that we see a comparatively large number of people here saying that they don't calculate the impact of the company. But if you go to what I believe is the next slide, we have many more people, or a much higher percentage, that are calculating the annual footprint of the roastery's energy consumption, which is a part and a really important component of that overall carbon footprint that a company has. And so in that same line or along those same lines about where we begin, I think there's something here that we can really dig into as a community of roasters about the resources that are available for calculating this roastery footprint. Now that would be like in the scope 1 and maybe scope 2 of the greenhouse gas protocol. The scope 3 emissions, which would encompass, travel, maybe packaging, shipping. It gets a lot messier once you get into to scope 3. So I look at this and I think that there are people who have definitely taken a step toward that measurement, and that coming up with some kind of dialogue within the community about who is finding those resources for scope 3 measurement to take the step from roastery to full company would be I would love to hear that conversation and do a little bit of matchmaking within the community to know who can we learn from here. So if you're one of those people who's measuring the whole carbon footprint of your company, I'd love to connect you maybe with some of the people who are have a solid start on the roastery, but aren't quite sure how to think about these other additional aspects of carbon footprint calculation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a super good point. Like if you're one of those people, we're also happy to host you on an online conversation, right? Like how did you get started? Like how was the pathway towards that calculation? Yeah. Yeah, super interesting. Thank you, Camillina. We have, as if there's no additional thoughts or comments, we'll switch from the footprint calculation towards packaging, and this is something Sara picked out as data points. Why did you pick this one? Why was it interesting to you?
I think it probably stems from my own personal frustration in navigating the in complicated world of coffee packaging. When I launched my RTD startup company, I found that sourcing packaging materials extremely difficult or challenging on different levels. And I knew that I was fully committed to try to source only sustainable materials. And as the survey that we passed around and the roasters that filled it in, you can see already that it's almost an even split between those that are using packaging or recyclable or compostable or reusable materials versus not. And I think that reflects that I think that there is a general drive to source sustainable materials. But I think that there's also a lot of misinformation or disinformation, lack of clarity, starting from the different definitions, what's recyclable, compostable, and reusable. When you rely on the information provided by packaging supplier companies, sometimes this information isn't so clear. A lot of the suppliers are based outside of the European Union or the US, and that adds a layer of complexity with language and translation. So I just found it very hard to navigate, but it sounds like there's a lot of people that actually figured out how to go about it. And again, I would encourage a conversation around this and dive in a little bit more in this topic. And the next slide sort of builds on this one. Here it's around what percentage of your coffee packaging labels are recyclable, compostable, or reusable here. So you're assuming that maybe not all the packaging can be either of these three categories. But that's something that, again, to me, called my attention. And I wonder if anybody here in this group wants to add more to the conversation and contribute to at least understand and define what is the difference between these three categories. It wasn't always super crystal clear to me, especially when it comes to compostable, the difference between home composting and industrial composting. I spent about a week trying to understand the difference. And the last piece is, how do you communicate to the consumers, to people that actually buy coffee from you? We call the packaging labels real estate material on a packaging. And so how do you make best use of that information? I tried to use certification labels, but sometimes those logos were not allowed to be used in the European Union, or I had to pay a fee to put the label on the packaging. So that's just why it caught my attention. I felt, why not bring this up and share this with the community?
Yeah, I can jump in quickly, really quickly to this, because this is also eye-opening experience that we're talking about sustainability and not necessarily eco-friendly, or all those other ways of understanding or what we've been exposed to. So sustainability is a much broader perspective, and this toolkit is actually allowing us to be aware that this is really a topic, a crucial topic, and it's really important to have that approach, a change of paradigm a little bit. So yeah.
And I was going to add also, if I may jump in with just a little bit of additional context. Sarah, when you called it, or when you referred to it as a survey, I think we're sharing the results now in this sort of like broad form, getting a snapshot of all the responses that came in. But it is really, I think, designed as an individual to be used to measure yourself or to guide your own choices. And also useful to be able to benchmark yourself a little bit against other people in the community and see, as we've been suggesting, whether maybe you could learn from some of your peers. But in this, I think the questions, some of them can offer a starting point, because clearly from a question like this, people are responding from all across the spectrum of understanding of or action around sustainability as it applies to roastery packaging. So knowing kind of what options are out there, what should you be thinking about as a roaster or someone who works in a coffee roastery? Like, what are the issues that are material to you? Is another just a way I just wanted to make sure to emphasize the usefulness of it in that respect, so that someone who is just getting into this conversation now can still use this tool. And even if the answers are all no, at least what other people who are in a similar position to yours are thinking about in their businesses.
It's very much that what Kim-Elena is saying, that you can use this product to kind of see what you are not doing, or get inspiration. So it's not per se to fill in the data and show off on how good you are. It rather is a tool for you that you can use as a checklist in your roastery and get inspiration, or look at your own business, or go to your boss and show what other people are doing in the business. And things you can do. I just want to add that I heard you saying, Kim-Elena, earlier that it would be so interesting to see this one broken into, like, we obviously didn't want to board everyone with like a super long format for this. So therefore, I think everything is so crammed into this question. But it would be very interesting, yes, to see the reusable cut out from compostable and recyclable, and look at the different bits separated. And on the reusable one, in particular, like I'm thinking meeting roasters at camp and retreat, and so that many shared insights, like, okay, where can we find those bucket that also has a valve, and how can we do this? And it's a general movement in the food and beverage industry, I think, for waste zero that's very much building onto that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts and insights. I think it was a good transition over to the last slide around. So if this toolkit is out there, how can I participate? And I think the easy, straightforward answer is you can just go to the crg.coffee website. There's the Sustainability Toolkit, also link right at the landing page, and just participate. Be part of the toolkit. You know, take the toolkit questions yourself. Yeah, get those inspirations, right? There's also two other things I wanted to add before we close off is you'll also always be up to date with everything this group and the CRG is doing if you follow the CRG on the Instagram channel, or also sign up to the CRG newsletter, and both links you can see there as well. So thank you so much for your thoughts, for sharing the data insights, looking into the interesting pieces that you found within the first part of the toolkit. And thank you for your time, and I'm very excited to see the next part in the next conversation, to continuing the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to get more data to analyze and to share with everyone else. So.